So anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to my first live here on YouTube in a very long time. I this morning had some thoughts that I was really thinking about and going through, and I was like, I should go live and just kind of share what I've been thinking and what I've been feeling. So this is a bit random. But it's also something that's really been on my heart. And I wanted this to be raw. I wanted this to be real and authentic. I wanted you guys to see into a bit of my thoughts, a bit of what I'm thinking about, what I'm struggling with, kind of all of it. And so, yeah, my hope today is just to bring you guys some of my thoughts on parenting styles. This came up last night. I was going through my feed, and I won't name any names, but there was an influencer who was talking about gentle parenting and how it's ruining our generation. And it literally made my skin crawl. And I think because gentle parenting is getting such a bad rap because it's not being used properly, because parents are given these tools and they're shown how to do things based on other children, and it's not working because it's not effective for their child. And that really scares me, because if we start erring too much on the side of an authoritative approach, which would mean, things like hitting and yelling and using fear and shame, if we kind of fall back into those parenting styles, which is something that many of us grew up with, that is not healthy. And if we lean too far into the permissive parenting, which a lot of people do fall into with gentle parenting because they don't know what they're doing the best they can. And that permissive parenting does kind of breed this child that can walk all over us, and it feels like they have no cares in the world other than themselves. I can hear a lot of people saying with gentle parenting, these kids are going to be spoiled. They're not going to have any kind of care about anybody else. It's based in, empathy and I forget the other words people were using, but it was like, yes, that is true. But also, are we swinging so far that we aren't using it properly? And, as a parenting coach, working with clients, it's helped me to understand that there is no cut and dry way. So I guess to really start this video today, I want to share that there is no right and wrong way of parenting. Raising children is so unique to each child, but there are a few basics that I think we need to really take into account when we are parenting our children. And the first thing is connection. Are we prioritizing connection first? Because without connection, there is no ability to have trust and safety in a relationship, which to me, those are the next two things. You have safety and trust, this foundation that you're going to be able to build off of, so that way your child really can learn. And then there becomes boundaries. And I know boundaries is also a really hot topic word right now. Is boundaries okay? Is boundaries, am my boundaries too harsh? Are they not too harsh? I only do natural consequences. I don't, it's like, let's just look at the basics here. There is a boundary that, we all need to be setting for our children, so they know what is safe, what is good, what is right. And by giving them that, they feel safe in that. So going back, that gives them that safety. The last part that I feel like every parent should be focusing on is, so we said connection, we said trust, safety, and boundaries. And lastly is a teaching or a correction. And this isn't in the form of shame or fear. I like to think of this as a moment where, we are their teacher, we are their guide. We get to teach them what to do. Because for me, the realization that we no longer, okay, so let me back up. I had this realization last night that I have had, almost 30 years on this earth. So I've had 30 years of experience. I have a 3-year-old who has 3 years experience. Well, she's almost 4, but she's had 3.5 years of experience. And I am expecting her to do something um, just based off of her 3 years of life. And if she's never shown how to do something, how to handle something, how is she going to know how to do it? It's my job to actually teach her how to do that. So, something we have been, struggling with in our home is, lying and telling the truth. And it's been this hard boundary, I guess, that I've had to set. And also, um, creating safety so that way my daughter knows that, she can trust me. She can trust me that she can come to me and she's not going to get in trouble for telling me the truth. But also, like, there is a correction that needs to happen when there is a lie told. And so finding this middle ground has been really difficult, to be honest. Like, it hasn't been easy. And if I were to land in one parenting approach, I feel like I would not be doing my daughter justice. I feel like I would not be helping her through this the way she needs to be helped through it. And so for me, there's been a lot less focus on, okay, how do I parent her? And a lot more focus on how do I show up? And so much of that is what can I control, right? What can I control in this situation? Because ultimately, that's all I can do. Our children are not something that we can or should be controlling. We are there to be their teacher, to be their guide. We are their parent. That's what that is. We're not their dictator. We are not their authority. We are their authority, but we're not their authority as in we tell them what to do and they must do what we tell them to do in that moment. If you go and listen to my gentle parenting and why I think it's biblical, you can hear more about kind of my thoughts on obedience and respect, which I think I should do a whole video on. If that's something you're interested in, comment, just so that way I have an idea of what people would be interested in. But I think that it's important to remember that there is so much information out there today. You can find information for any side of any argument that you want to find. And as a parent, it's important that we find what is best for our family and what is best for our child. And it's going really inward. It's really coming to this place within ourselves that we trust ourselves. I just did an episode on intuition. I think that this is one of the building blocks on being able to show up as the parent that our child needs, because without being completely connected and in tune with ourselves, with our own intuition, trusting ourselves as our child's parent, we cannot show up effectively. We cannot show up with this love and compassion and curiosity. It doesn't come easily. And for me, at least, I was stuck in a state of fight and flight for so long. And looking back, I just wish that I had focused on like getting myself out of that state, because I was being triggered by my daughter's emotions because I couldn't handle it in that moment. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so there was so much for me that could have been changed just by focusing on myself and focusing less on my daughter's behaviors. So anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. I don't have any notes today, which is something that scares me a bit because I can get off topic real quick. But I want to get back to the parenting styles and kind of my thoughts on a few of the different parenting styles. And, I already shared kind of where I land, but I do want to share and expound a bit more on where do I land? How do I take these pieces of these different parenting styles and how do I blend them together? So first, let's talk about gentle parenting. I feel like gentle parenting is kind of the broad term for a more respectful approach to parenting. I look at this as kind of the big umbrella, and then you've got the other smaller ones underneath it. And, if somebody is a gentle parenting coach and they specialize in that, please comment below and totally tell me I'm wrong here. But from what I've learned through my schooling is, gentle parenting is really this bigger, broader approach. And so I look at this as really us coming to a place where we are on the same team as our child. And I know that that can be super triggering for parents, especially when we're in a state of fight or flight. But as you start to heal yourself as a parent, start to come down, come out of the fear of raising a naughty, a bad child, making a self-absorbed, selfish adult. Once we are able to come out of that place, we're able to soften ourselves as a mother, as a father. That's not really our role necessarily. But as a mother, really soften who we are so that way we can be loving and nurturing and compassionate. And from there, we start to understand what our child is going through. We get to see things from their perspective. And I feel like that's what gentle parenting, the premise it really is getting down on our child's level and letting them be heard, letting them be seen, even if we don't understand what they're going through, even if to us it doesn't make sense. And that's okay. It doesn't have to make sense for us, but we can show up and we can give our child understanding. We can give our child the space to let them feel what they're feeling, right? I think that that's another big thing with gentle parenting is there's this misconception that gentle parenting is, oh, we say it's totally okay to feel what you're feeling. Well, part of that is true. Part of it is true in that, every emotion is normal to feel. I like to say more acknowledging a feeling. I don't like validating a feeling quite so much. That makes it sound like it's okay to, however you want to respond to that feeling, basically. But for me, it's the feelings are not bad. And that's, I just think something that we need to, as a generation, we need to like really get our minds wrapped around is feelings are not bad. No feeling is bad. It's what comes from that feeling. Every feeling can be useful. For me, anger is a red flag. Feeling nervous, scared, that's a yellow flag. It's like these little moments of like, oh, okay, this is supposed to catch my attention. This isn't bad. This is actually really helpful. So yeah, I feel like those are just a few things within gentle parenting that can be really confusing for some. But I don't think that all in all, gentle parenting is bad. I think that it's when we really swing and we don't know how to implement these things with our children. We're just taking, advice that we found off Instagram and we're using, a script essentially with our child. Our child can feel that it's scripted. They know that that's not really who we are and what we believe. We're just trying something new to make a behavior stop, which for me, that's not getting to the root. I don't want just a behavior to stop. If you've been to any of my workshops, you know that I talk about a Band-Aid, putting a Band-Aid on things in my Stop Yelling workshop, which if you're interested in that, you can go in the description and I have all my recorded workshops there. But it's like there is this Band-Aid that we put on and that is the behavior stopping most of the time because most of us don't know how to approach a behavior and truly correct it. We are coming at it at this place of this is bad. This needs to stop. So just stop doing it. I will yell. I will shame. I will, and if it's permissive, it's going on the other side. I'll ignore it. I'll pretend it's not happening. And neither of those are healthy, right? And so we want to be able to show up for our child and be fully present, be fully able to accept and hear what is going on for them so we can help them through that. So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. And as far as the other parenting styles, so you've got respectful parenting, which I love. If you guys have heard of Janet Lunsberry, I absolutely love her stuff. If she ever happens to listen to this, I would love to do a podcast with Janet because I don't deal so much with the behavioral side of things. I am more a coach that looks at the parent. I'm looking at, what is going on for the parent and how can you show up? How can we, how can we work through these feelings that you are having, these triggering moments, and how can you show up with calm and peace and presence to help your child through to the other side, but with respectful parenting, this was actually one of the first things that I really gravitated to with my daughter. When she was about 1, I started listening to, she's a little younger than 1. I started listening to Janet's stuff, and so much of the respectful parenting approach, it's so honoring to the child. And I feel like it gives the child, I mean, truthfully, the respect that they are needing and craving. And something that I had really come to this aha moment when I was listening to Janet at one point, where she was describing this child. I can't remember the exact story, so I guess I won't describe it, but essentially a child was, having a meltdown, and I can't remember, mom wanted the meltdown to be over and whatever. And so basically this child needed her to just get on this child's level and just like be there. And so it was like, wait, so are you saying that all I have to do is like get on their level for them to feel heard and seen? Because this is a big deal to them. Just like for me, like spilling my coffee all over, it might seem trivial to another adult, but to me, that's a big deal. I just spent 25 minutes brewing the coffee, carrying the baby around and doing all the things. This is actually a true story. This morning, it took me forever to make my coffee, and then I spilled it, and I was so upset by it. And truthfully, had that been my toddler, they had just made milk, I would think that that's really ridiculous. And what makes it okay for our child to not be able to have those feelings, but we are? Like, that for me was really confusing. So I love Janet's approach. I love the respectful parenting, I guess I should say, approach to many of the behavioral things, because I feel like it's really acknowledging where a child is at. It's really giving them that space to be seen, to be heard. Now, as far as the other parenting approaches, I've heard peaceful parenting, which is a lot of what the school that I went to, what they teach. And then you've got calm parenting, slow parenting. And I feel like if we get to the root of all of these, it's being fully present for our child. It's being able to show up and just, what's the word I want to use? It's like, it's just to show up with compassion, to show up with, empathy and connection. And I think that this is the premise of all of them. And, for slow parenting, something that I love about this is that, for me, there's a big belief that we need to get out of that fight or flight as a parent so we can show up with presence. Because for myself, I always wondered, why can't I just show up with presence? Why can't I just be present? And it was because my life was so busy. I was go, 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 go constantly. And when I could slow down, there was more room. There was more room for the tantrums and for me to have a connection moment and for me to correct. And with peaceful parenting, I loved that I could show up and I could, 1, be fully present, but 2, I didn't have to yell or scream, because that just made me feel angry for the rest of the day. I found myself saying things like, to myself, obviously, not to my child, but it was like, why are you doing this again? Why are you having another tantrum? This is such an inconvenience for me. I don't want to be miserable all day. I want to have a good day. Just things like that just felt totally unfair. And now that I don't approach it for the most part, I don't lead with yelling. Yelling is not my go-to. There is much more curiosity and understanding, and then a correction and a boundary that happens. When I was able to come at it from that very peaceful approach, honestly, it changed my day. It was no longer like a tantrum, and a really hard moment was no longer like this big mountain that I was sitting at the top of. It was more like just a little blimp in my day. It was like, whoop, like It was a teeny tiny little speed bump that, yep, we had a little speed bump and we're good. We can have a good rest of the day. And that was something that was really hard for me prior to this point. Something that I've mentioned in several videos is I love the Danish way of parenting. Maybe I have some Danish people who are listening in here. I hope I do. But I love so much about their culture. They're so free with their children. If you guys haven't read The Danish Way of Parenting, this book has been huge in how I have chose to parent. It freed me from the helicopter mom. If you are a helicopter mom, I want you to know there's nothing wrong with you. I know that you love your children, but there is something very freeing as a parent to know that, like, this is the years that they get to explore. I want them to explore, and I want them to do that while I'm there so I can teach them how to do it in safety. I will never forget, I think it was in the book, or maybe it was the author of The Danish Way of Parenting. I was listening to a talk. I can't remember. But she was talking about how her son came home and I think he was young, like kindergarten-ish, and he was whittling a stick. And she was like, oh my gosh, when he's using like a little knife and he's using it's getting really pointy, and like this in the US would never be a thing. And I think how true that is. And, obviously, I think that it's important that we teach our kids safe boundaries, and how to be safe. And it's important that's our mindset, but also giving them freedom within that. Something that I constantly ask myself is what my child's doing going to land us in the ER? Like, that is a constant question of mine. Or is it going to be a bump or a scrape, something that, like, for me, that my second is, she is a daredevil. They call her an adventure seeker through her therapy program. And it's like, she's scary. She will try anything. And I don't want to stop her from that, but there has to be boundaries. So one of my boundaries is like the road. Heyo, you're 1.5. The road is not a safe place, so I have to set that boundary pretty firmly. I get down on her level and I let her know, like, you cannot run in the road. And if you run in the road again, I'm going to have to bring you in the house because I don't want you to get hurt. I love you and I want to keep you safe. And there were several moments where we've had to go into the house because she just could not, respect my boundary. But these last couple of times that we've gone outside, she said, road, no, road, no. And I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, you're learning. It took 14 times, but you're learning. And so I think it's important to remember that, boundaries are 100% necessary in keeping our children safe. But are we being unrealistic? Are we not wanting our child to jump in a puddle because we are worried about our car getting messy? Like, is that what we're worried about? Or are we worried about, an actual safety issue here? They want to jump in the puddle in the middle of the street where fast cars are going. Yes, that's a problem, So I think it's really evaluating and changing where our mind is at. So anyway, The Danish Way of Parenting is one of my favorite books. But I don't know if you've realized this as I've been going through this live, but there is not one parenting style that I'm attached to. I see them all as really awesome. They have different aspects that are awesome. And I don't think that there's any one way that is the right way. I think I touched on this earlier. I don't agree with necessarily an authoritative parenting style, nor do I agree with a permissive parenting style. There's this parenting with where really we are coming together with our child to help them move past any situation. And if you think about it, as an adult, that's what we want. That's why we have a spouse. This is why we, go to our friends or our family members when things come up, because we need help through these moments. And why are we expecting our children not to need us? And so yeah, so I hope that this was helpful. If you have questions about parenting styles, what do you think about this? How does this apply? Please comment that below. Maybe it's another episode that I do where I deep dive into a certain parenting style. But I just want to say that for me, there is not one parenting style that I am attached to. Rather, it is bits and pieces that work for each of my children, and they work differently. And that is totally okay. And that's beautiful. And that's the point of parenting. I feel like for me, my parenting style is what is going on with my child? One, two, what works best for my child? And thirdly, what is going to give us that empathy, that compassion? How am I going to build trust and safety? How am I going to connect with them? How am I going to set boundaries? And what is that correction going to look like? And if you've been around here a while, you know that all of these things, when put together, can work so beautifully to help our children to really come to a place of knowing how to exist in this world. And I think that's our goal as parents, right? It's to raise children that are independent and competent, and they know how to handle what they're feeling. And I mean, I know a lot of people say, our goal is to not have our kids in therapy. And, I don't think that that's even, I don't even think that's a goal. I think that the goal is just to help raise children that know who they are, who believe in themselves, that trust in themselves, and are able to make decisions confidently. So yeah, well, I hope that this was helpful in some way. If you guys, like I said, have any questions, please feel free to comment them below. I'll do my best to check them. And if there's any that really stick out, if you have a story to tell, if you have even a long question that's very specific to you, I encourage you to email me at alexis@slowishparenting.com. And if you are interested in coaching, which is something that is so helpful when parents are like, okay, gentle parenting isn't working or respectful parenting isn't working for my kid, I can help you figure out what you believe, what you are needing, what your child is needing, and how to start implementing that in your life. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me this morning. I hope that this was helpful in some way. And as always, I hope that you guys have a good week and happy parenting.